Okay, friends, I think we're about to start. We'll have a short introduction from Bellevue, where we are hosted today, and then we'll jump right in.
Hallo, guten Abend. Ich möchte euch ganz herzlich willkommen heißen bei unserer Podiumsdiskussion Can't Relax in Lesbos heute Abend. Mein Name ist Manina, ich arbeite beim Bellevue de Monaco, mache hier so Kulturprogramm. Dieser Abend findet statt in unserem Sommerprogramm, auch wenn es schon ein bisschen spätsommerlich ist. Bel Air, das wir zusammen mit der Glockenbach-Werkstatt organisieren. Ich möchte euch nur ganz kurz ein paar organisatorische Dinge sagen, gar nicht so viel inhaltlich, weil das passiert dann nachher gleich alles hinter mir mit dem Bernd Kasparek als Moderator und mit unseren Gästen im wunderhübschen Bildschirm. Ihr habt es schon alle noch mal kurz gehört, immer wenn ihr rumlauft, bitte zieht die Maske an. Wenn ihr auf die Toilette müsst zum Beispiel, die befindet sich im Haus hinter mir. Wenn ihr etwas zu trinken wollt, bitte einmal mit den bunten Zetteln winken, dann bringt der Johannes euch direkt was an den Platz. Genau, das sind so die ganz, ganz wesentlichen Dinge. Wenn ihr sitzt, dürft ihr natürlich die Maske abnehmen. So. Wir spenden heute die kompletten Einnahmen des heutigen Abends an Lesvos Solidarity, die NGO, die ihr auch gleich live erleben werdet. Und wir streamen das Ganze live und bitten auch da um Spenden. Also ihr könnt es auch gerne nachher noch weiterleiten, Leuten sagen, hier hinspenden und so weiter und so fort. Ihr könnt euch vorstellen, da ist gerade ganz viel los. Wir haben diese Veranstaltung schon länger geplant. Wir wussten nicht, dass es so brisant werden würde. Das ist tragisch und umso schöner finden wir es, dass diese Veranstaltung stattfinden kann und dass wir direkt mit Menschen reden können, die vor Ort sind. Die Veranstaltung ist größtenteils auf Englisch. Das heißt, wenn es irgendwie bei jemandem ganz große Verständnisschwierigkeiten gibt, dann müssen wir einfach mal ein bisschen gucken, ob wir spontan ein bisschen auf Deutsch übersetzen. Dann müsst ihr dann einfach winken. Um ein bisschen Beteiligung hinzukriegen, ist hier ein freier Platz auf dem Podium. Das heißt, immer nach dem ersten Gesprächsteil wird Bernd auffordern, dass ihr auch auf die Bühne kommen könnt und direkt eine Frage stellen könnt, sodass ein bisschen Diskussion direkt zustande kommt und dass unsere Gesprächspartner euch auch sehen und nicht einfach in einen leeren Bildschirm reden müssen. Genau. Okay, das soweit zur Einführung. Ich hoffe, es wird ein spannender Abend. And I will hand over to Bernd and our guests in diverse places of this world.
Ja, herzlich willkommen und good evening. Thank you very much for joining us today. Aptly titled discussion, podium discussion, Zoom discussion. I can't relax in Lesbos. As you can imagine, this was not planned to coincide with the recent developments, but I think it makes it even more urgent, and I'm even more happy that you have come here today to listen to our guests who will be able to discuss with us in greater detail the situation, not only of the last days in Moria in Lesbos, but also the situation as it had existed in the camp many weeks and months before. And we also hope to put a little spotlight on that particular part of the European external borders, the Aegean Sea between Turkey and Greece, which has been a site of border violence for many, many years. That is roughly the schedule that we're trying to follow today. So, my name is Bernd. I'm active in Munich with the Karawane für die Rechte der Flüchtlinge und Migrantinnen, and I'm also part of a research association called Border Monitoring EU. We mostly attempt to document and to analyze what is happening around the European external borders. And let me perhaps move over so that we can introduce our guests, who will mostly introduce themselves. And perhaps we can start with Marie. If you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your work and what has brought you to Lesbos.
Yeah, like you said, my name is Marie. I'm active with Marilyberum, which is an organization that does human rights monitoring in the Aegean and with the ship. I went to Lesbos beginning of this year in January, and I was actually planning to stay for about 4 weeks, and it turned into 5 months. And yeah, so I got quite familiar with the situation there. There was a lot going on there. Also with like fascist attacks, a lot of violence, and yeah, so I think that is yeah, short introduction for now.
Thank you very much. Carmen, may I ask you to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone, and thanks for inviting us. So I'm Carmen, I'm with Lesvos Solidarity. We are a local organization active in Lesvos since 2012, when basically a group of Greek local people decided that they wanted to take people off the streets and started to host them in what is now still known as Pikpa Camp, where we still host some of the most vulnerable people in the island. And also recently, since the start of the pandemic, we also started to host some unaccompanied children in our camp. And our approach is very much, that we are organized as a community in the local community, also having a lot of, supporters from all over Europe. Very much to denounce, of course, what is happening in Moria camp, and to really show that there is another way to host people in the community. That's a bit of a summary, I think, for now. Me personally, the first time in Lesbos, I was there in 2013, and then I spent 2017 and 18 mostly there. And I came back in March, as Marie mentioned, when, kind of the fascist attacks and the violence kind of flared up. I came back, and yeah, still there.
Thank you very much. And I'm especially happy that Sam, who's in Athens now, is able to join us. Sam, might I also ask you to introduce yourself a little bit to our audience?
Hey, I'm Samuel, and I'm an asylum seeker, and I've been in Lesbos since March. I was transferred obviously to Athens, and I've been in Moria camp for the past 5 months. I think that's it from me for now.
Thank you. Sorry, I think it's a bit difficult to understand you. Am I right? The audience is nodding affirmatively. Can you try to speak more directly into your microphone?
Okay.
Thank you.
I am Sunny, and I've been in Lesbos since March when I arrived, and I've been there for 5 months till I was transferred to mainland of recent. And I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you. Samuel, I'm very happy that you managed to leave Moria. Would you like to talk to us a little bit about how you have learned and how you have experienced the developments of the last days, that is the burning down of nearly the entire camp and the structures around Moria?
Yes, even before I left already, I was well certain that there were tensions already that were arising, where different groups of people were resisting the presence of the camp, and different people, they used to come and demonstrate in in front of the police, and among us that they promised to burn down the camp. And I'm not sure. I don't want to raise any hands to know who's responsible for that, but there are a lot of things, and also the situations that we have been living in, from the food to even the beddings, it has been miserable. I can assure you for that. It has really been very bad, whereby even accessing even a bottle of water has been a real hassle. Only a few, and the majority have always gone to bed hungry. If at all you cannot stay in the long lines, if at all you fear to be attacked, if you fear something bad can happen to you, of course you will not be able to get a meal, or you'll not be able to access the common areas because it has been really a miserable situation. I think that's all I can say about it. It's been a very bad place to be. I can tell you for that. Whereby most of the people have gone, we have even had to lose some. We have even had to lose some. I think that's it for me. Yeah, that's what I can say for the previous months that I was there. It was very terrible. The conditions were, and you couldn't stay there. Trust me. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, there has been a lot of reporting in German media, and I guess in other European media as well. And they often talk about Moria saying it's the largest European refugee camp. And so I believe that a lot of people have images of rows of tents organized by the UNHCR or some other organization. That I think is an image that might come up. So could you describe a little bit how Moria was organized, and where people were living, and how generally the camp was functioning, in inverted commas, the camp was functioning?
Yeah. To talk about when I came, it's sad but true, but when I came, we were handed 3 people a small blue summer tent, if you can know what that looks like. First of all, the camp is the structure of the facility is very small, and I can assure you that the people that live outside the structure are more than the people that live inside, and also inside it's already full to the brim, and so it's all over. Yeah, the numbers outlive the desired people that need to really be in the camp. And me, when I came, when I first read, I even cried that very day. I had to cry and even told my lawyer that I can't imagine what I'm really going through. I was forced to go into the jungle because of the small area. I was forced into the jungle, like the jungle where there's even no electricity, where there's nothing. It's just trees, and that's where I was to put up my tent and where to live. It was it's so bad you can't even try to bring it to light. We were living 3 people in a summer tent when I first reached, and you can imagine we were staying there with the scorching sun, and it was barely possible for you to stay inside the tent, and that was the only safe place, because when they give you a tent, it's the only safe place for you if you manage to have one, because outside that it's impossible to live because of the conditions people turn to one another, if you know what I mean. So that's how I was living, and other people were sleeping outside the tents. Other people had nowhere to sleep, and even if you would go to the authorities, you would get more or less help. That is because the authorities were not really helping because of the large numbers. I think they grew tired of helping, because even when you help this one, another one will come and another one will come. So their facilities were not enough, so they had to just give up on it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all this with us. I'm sure it was a very difficult situation. May I ask you one last question? If all the conditions are so bad and the authorities can't even provide much more than a small tent for way too many people, and people have to camp outside the actual structure of Moria, why was it impossible to go away on your own? Why did you have to wait and to be transferred? Why, or more generally, why are 13,000 people there and cannot move away on their own if the authorities cannot maintain this situation?
I've seen this. I know the reason is because the European Asylum Service is not working or is not doing enough. And because the security, it's an island, there's no way you can live without the papers, without these documents, like when you don't have like the residence, or if your asylum has not been accepted, there's literally no way you can live. So people just stay there. So people come and then they start compiling there. And the asylum doesn't work there. We had to keep on demonstrating every day, and they don't listen. They do not give even the necessary help. You don't know, in case you need a lawyer, you don't know where to go get a lawyer. They do not prepare you for any case. They do not give you any of the things that you need to really be helped. That is what I think. And in that way, the people remain there and they can't get the access at times. This is with the asylum. At times, the interpreters, it's a different case. They tell you your interview, they'll give you a very long date. That is for sure. They'll give you just go and then you go to renew your space, and then they'll give you a date that's in a very far date. That's for sure. Let's say if you come in 2020, I was living with a friend of mine. He's from West Africa. I found him there because for him he had come last year. That is 2019, and to Canada, and he got the horse ride. That's like the path for you, that you renew every month. When the corona happened, they had closed the asylum procedure, and they were not like taking in the pending interviews. They were not listed or they were not carried out. So when they resumed the services, all those people had to be given different dates. And he happened to be given a date in, if I'm to remember very well, he was given a date in July 2021. And he was really very angry about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just, yeah.
Oh, sorry, didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, I think that's what I think. It's just that the asylum service is not doing enough to help with the people, to help clearing the cases. I think that's it for me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Like I said, we will try to organize this discussion a little bit in rounds. So I would like to start a little conversation with Carmen. Can you said you're not in Lesbos right now, but you have been very closely in touch with your friends and colleagues on the island, and I understand that you probably have a much better picture of what is going on than us. So would you like to tell us how the events of the last days unfolded and what is the current situation now around the burnt down camp of Moria?
Yeah, sure, and I'm sure Marie will have things to add as well. Yeah, I mean the summary I think of what is happening right now is total despair and chaos. And I would like to start just to re-emphasize again. I mean the cause and the context of all of this. That this is of course something. It was a ticking time bomb, something that, you know, all of us have been denouncing and saying that Moria is not safe and is unacceptable. And now it has come to this, which we think, first of all, it's very important again to say that what we see right now happening in the streets, thousands and thousands of people left there, homeless, without, you know, food and water, after everything they've been through, it is a direct result of the cruel policies that the European Union is imposing and the Greek government. Because when you were referring, you know, in the beginning to the image of Moria camp and a tent camp, I mean, for us, Moria camp is very much, you know, a symbol. It's a testing ground where the European Union is you know, really testing how far they can go, and they're showing there how they treat people on the move, and we've heard from Samuel what that means. I mean, this for us is now, you know, this should be now a wake-up call, like a turning point. You cannot keep treating people basically like they are not people. I mean, this is what is happening right now, and this is what is continuing to happen today as well after the fire. I mean, and I think a very clear example in this context is that after the fire, the immediate first response of the authorities was to send in riot police, not to send in civil protection with whatever tents, food, everything that you need, you know, to offer some first protection to people. No, riot police. And this is, I think this is very telling for what Greece and the European Union, like the message that they want to send. And I think you have to imagine, I mean, Sam, of course, described it very well. We also shouldn't forget that most of those people now are families, like the majority of people in and around Moria camp are families. We're talking about 4,000 children with their families who are basically now living, surviving on the streets, basically between Moria camp and Mytilene, where there has been created some kind of a restricted area. So the police is also kind of, how you say, there's like blockades, so it's a restricted area where the authorities are now trying to coordinate to get some food and water to people. But yeah, I mean, you hear from people that they are desperate, that people haven't eaten, didn't get access to water. There's a lack of information, there's chaos all around. And the clear message that also the authorities were sending after the fire, straight after the fire, was that, okay, they have moved 400 unaccompanied children from the island, basically straight away. This is something that happened, but they sent a clear message and said, there will be no evacuation to Europe or to Greece. This will not happen. We are looking again into temporary shelter, trying to do the basics. And then they again basically said, we want to rebuild Moria camp, and it also should be a closed structure, a closed camp, which is something they are pushing for a long time, and they will try to use now again a momentum to rebuild it as a closed structure.
Does that mean a prison? Or what is a closed structure? Exactly,
a prison. I mean, this is of course also interestingly the semantics, because then in other documents they will say no, it's controlled access. So there is this plan to also put a high-tech infrastructure where people will have cards and chips, and then there will be controlled access. Basically, it comes, I mean, as far as we can tell now, and from the rhetoric and the agenda of this government, it will come down to de facto detention is what we can understand. And this, of course, combined with a local society now that, I mean, we referred to it already. In March, we had really a peak of a lot of violence and tension and attacks, where, the hate, the polarization has been fed very actively, also by authorities. So now, of course, you also have angry locals who also, gather. There's blockades there, where you're not sure what will happen. There was also, since this morning, there's a blockade where also the local authorities with some local residents are actually blocking the access to Moria camp because they don't want the authorities to start going in there, starting to clean the area and start to reuse it. So they want to prevent it because they never wanted a Moria camp in their island, and they definitely don't want Moria camp and the closed structure that is being proposed. So you have these cocktail of all these tensions and this repressive agenda that's being followed, where in the middle of it, of course, you have all these people, again, more than 10,000 people who are again re-traumatized, who had to flee flames and smoke. Yesterday also tear gas, because we had a second fire that broke out where people had to flee again away from Moria. They were tear gassed on one side, basically, from the police. There were angry locals gathering in another part. So you basically again see that, they are struggling to even find a safe space. And this is what is happening today. And the only thing that Europe can do, and, the first reactions of European leaders was to send their sympathy. And, Lesvos is in our thoughts. We really don't need sympathy at this point. We need an acknowledgement and a turning point, and for them to finally see that, their poster child, because, they want to copy what is happening in the Greek islands, in the hotspots. They want to copy this for the future of Europe everywhere. And their poster child, Moria camp, is in ashes. And we really hope that they will finally acknowledge that it really is unacceptable to put all these lives at risk. And at the same time, we have people also who died in Moria camp. It's more than putting lives at risk. And that we really need something new right now that respects people at last.
Thank you. Just to make it, because I think for you it's very clearly in your mind, but perhaps to help our audience understand a little bit. So from what I gather, Mytilene, the island's capital, is in the south, and I think Pikpa is also very close to Mytilene. But Moria itself is several kilometers to the north, so it's not located anywhere close to any urban structure. Is that correct?
It's the closest structure, let's say, is Moria village. Yeah, so there are some villages around, but yeah, by car it would take you 10 minutes from Mytilene to reach the camp. And
so, if I understood correctly, so the camp burned down, and basically there's not much left. If that is correct,
correct. Yes, that's correct.
That means, like, the containers and all the offices of the European agencies that are there and of the Greek institutions that were there, they are all gone.
This, and I don't know, maybe Marie has also some information on this. As far as I heard, some of the administration offices are still intact from the information that I heard. Mm-hmm. But definitely, I mean, the largest part of the camp is gone. With some exceptions of some structures and some parts.
And so the refugees that were detained in the way that Samuel described it, after Moria burnt down, they were not taken to Mytilene. They were not given like alternative accommodation, like, for example, there are hotels around, I guess, or other kinds of infrastructure. But this is what you described. People are still out on the streets, hiding or living in the countryside, and there's no proper way to reach them, or it's very difficult to imagine something like this.
Yeah, and we're also, of course, talking about more than 10,000 people. I mean, it's a lot of people, but yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, and this is, it again, of course, shows the priorities and how important it is to really like protect and look after people. But yeah, I mean, after the fire, people have started to make their way. You have a big road that leads kind of from direction to Moria camp towards Mytilene, where then where there's another camp, Karatepe camp, also on the way, and there was a police blockade. So there the people were stopped. Of course, also, I mean, one of the reasons that were mentioned there was to say that also in times of COVID that they really want to prevent the people to go into Mytilene, because of course all of this, and this is very important to mention, it's also, I mean, in COVID times, which this is very important also to keep in mind for what people are going through now in the streets, that they have already lived through 6 months of an effective lockdown of Moria camp. So in March, the camp was basically put under lockdown under the pretext of COVID, which basically was an excuse. I mean, COVID didn't justify the fact to lock people up and even prevent them from going out to do shopping and other things. But again, it was instrumentalized by the government for like further segregation, imprisonment de facto of the people in Moria camp. At the same time, there were no measures taken to protect people from COVID. So there was a COVID unit constructed and operated by MSF, by Doctors Without Borders, that the local authorities forced to close. So they had to close down. And then, you know, a month or something afterwards, we had the first positive COVID case in Moria camp. So then you have a camp where already are people are for 6 months almost in a lockdown. As Sam described, you don't have guaranteed running water. It's difficult to even access a bottle of water. You don't have decent food. You don't, you know, there is no plan in case of COVID. And then the first cases were confirmed, and there was no, you know, there was no plan, no COVID unit. So people have lived through all of this, and now they are in the streets. So, yeah, I mean, we can only imagine the despair and what it means for all these people and all these children and families.
Thank you very much. I would like to include Marie in our discussion. Perhaps I would like to start with a question is, so this is an island of, I think, about 80,000 inhabitants, Lesbos. We have an additional refugee population of 13,000 people. The camp is no more. Why is not everybody just being evacuated to the mainland now and taken to Athens, to Thessaloniki, to the other urban hubs that exist in Greece?
I mean, the question, people have been asking this question for a really long time. And I think now that Moria is in the news a lot, people talk of the camp as, you know, a place where Europe has failed. But I think it's important to understand that Moria is not a place where, you know, a system failed. It is symbolic of the system, and it's symbolic of how Europe is trying to isolate the borders. And I mean, it starts like even in Turkey with the EU-Turkey deal that, you know, was trying to prevent people crossing the Aegean. Then there's the Aegean, where there is a really brutal, illegal system of pushbacks. So there was a Greek minister who's in charge of the Hellenic Coast Guard, who just 2 weeks ago prided himself that they prevented 10,000 migrants from crossing the Aegean in 2020. And yeah, and then the very few people that make it even to Lesbos and to European soil have to go to Moria. And it's you know, it's not where the system, you know, is not working. This is the system. I think there is a large European interest in, you know, like making sure that Europe is not appealing to anybody. Whereas, you know, I think the problem is, well, obviously it's a problem in itself, but, you know, there's people on the move that don't have a choice. And, you know, like families with babies, you know, they don't get into a tiny rubber boat onto the open sea if they have a choice. Nobody would do that. So why don't they evacuate Moria? I don't think they really have an interest in, you know, saving people or creating a you know, a good life for people seeking safety in Europe. I mean, it also, I mean, Carmen kind of explained it with how the Greek government handled the corona outbreak. I mean, there was a long time. The reaction was to put Moria under lockdown. I think it's the only place in the world, except for a few other Greece, that was under continuous lockdown. And then the only decent hospital by MSF, Doctors Without Borders, was shut down because apparently they didn't have the right permission. They were fined 35,000 euros. And then Corona broke out, and the reaction was to increase police, not to increase any of the medical staff, but just to send more units to control the area and to implement a complete lockdown, like a quarantine. So, and at the same time, there was also a fence or a contract with a company being finalized about a fence around Moria for 850,000 euros. So there is obviously money, but it's being put into shielding a place to the outside, and not like there's no sense, you know, of humanity.
Thank you. I would like to pick up something you said in the beginning of your statement just now, because perhaps it needs to be explained a little bit. What is a pushback? What does it mean to when the Greek minister says that we have prevented the entry of so and so many people? Like, what does it mean? Just to make it clear what it constitutes.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sometimes so deep into the topic that I forget that not everybody's aware of it. A pushback is if, in the Aegean, it would be if people move from Turkey, they get into boats, and once they've reached Greek waters, if they would meet authorities, they have the human right, and it's written in the EU Charter, it's and it's part of international law that they have the right to seek asylum, so that their case is being reviewed, and then a decision is being made after, you know, a certain process is implemented. Just removing people, and in many cases it's absolutely brutal. They're being beaten on sea, they're being forced into life rafts and abandoned on sea. A lot of times their motor is being destroyed, or the boats drive past really closely to create waves to push them towards Turkish waters again. And all this is illegal, and it's called a pushback, and unfortunately it's a really, really common practice. The sort of record month was August, with over 3,000 people being pushed back.
This doesn't sound just like a human rights violation. This sounds like criminal offenses that are being committed at the borders of Europe.
Absolutely. I mean, there's also just like is in distress, that you have to help this person or this boat. The only exception would be if you would endanger your own life. And interesting enough, for example, Marie-Libéum has collected evidence of 4 cases where the German military ship under NATO commando, the A1411, the Berlin, was present doing these pushbacks, sometimes for hours, where people were beaten, their engines were destroyed by Hellenic Coast Guard, a lot of times by masked men. But it has been proven through forensic details, for example, the certain dinghies belonging to certain boats, that it was Hellenic Coast Guard. And a German ship was present in at least 4 cases. And the German government has been questioned about this. And they have admitted to 2 cases, which we actually didn't know about. And even though the boats were in absolute distress, I mean, a tiny rubber boat that is probably wouldn't be safe to go on a lake. I wouldn't do it. That are absolutely overcrowded with sometimes 10 times the capacity they can carry. And these boats are per definition in distress. So if a boat that has the capacity to rescue doesn't rescue, that is a crime itself. And to have like a German official boat being present at several of these incidents
You're breaking up.
And it also shows that European countries worked really well when it comes to my internet connection. Can you hear me now?
Hey, you're coming back now.
All right. Well, saying I've got perfect. Well, I was so getting so angry about German ships. Where did you lose me?
Exactly at that point.
But
I think it was very plastic. Thank you very much. I think it's very important to describe this whole continuum from the sea to the land, to the from the Coast Guard to the riot police to the infrastructures of detention in Moria and like we sometimes say open air prison from Lesbos. Can I use this moment to include the audience? Like we said, we have an empty chair, which I hope might be filled. So if you would like to address one of our, or several of our guests which have joined us, would like to invite you to come forward and ask a question, and then we'll have a short round afterwards to ask how we can continue, how we can go forward at this juncture in time. Any takers? Genau. Also auch gern, falls ihr es alle gehört habt, Fragen auch gerne auf Deutsch. Wir übersetzen das. Muss nicht ins gesamte Internet übertragen werden, wer sich hier hinsetzt. Hallo. Bitte schön.
Danke. Hello.
So we have one member of the audience.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, nice to meet you. So I just wanted to know, because we didn't get you properly now because of the missing internet connection. Could you again describe this issue with the German ship? How they, what was the? Can you again describe the situation, because I didn't get this properly? What the role and the purpose of this German ship was, and what they have missed to do or to intervene.
All right. Yeah, I'm happy to describe it. Just maybe wave if my internet connection is shitty. I could also look for another place. But Mare Liberum has collected evidence of 4 cases where this German military ship under NATO commando was present doing a pushback. For example, one time the Hellenic Coast Guard beat people in a boat. They destroyed their engine and they let them drift for over 8 hours. And the boat, the water was getting in and people were really panicking and afraid that they were going to die. And the boat, or the ship, the A1411, the Berlin, was present at this on 17th. But
it's better again.
Okay. So they were present and they didn't intervene, even though it was a human rights violation, and also they would have been required to rescue the people. Because as I explained before, per definition, a absolutely overcrowded rubber dinghy that is not made for open seas is in distress. And in one of those boats, for example, it was 67 people, a lot of young children and even babies, a lot of women. And for me, this is an example of how European countries work together to shield off the border. And the German government has been active about the involvement of the ship. And they have been asked. And in one incident, they said the German government has officially said they're not interested in revealing any information because it wouldn't be beneficial to their relationship with Greece.
And so the people in the boats, they have been rescued then by your organization in these cases? Or
No,
who has rescued them?
They were rescued by Turkish Coast Guard after a really long time, but in Greek waters. And we, at the moment, we are not able to go out with the ship because, the German Transport Ministry, they changed the law, so we couldn't go out. This is the short version, but we won a court case against the German Traffic Ministry twice, and afterwards, now documents were being leaked that they changed the law that forbids us from going out at the moment.
And the NATO, there was another NATO ship on the same place, so were there two ships at the same time, or was it a NATO mission? So was it only the German ship on a NATO mission?
It's the Berlin is part of a NATO mission in the Aegean Sea. I mean, there were incidences where there was up to 5, 6 boats involved. Sometimes even Frontex is present. Sometimes there have been incidents where there's boats of 4 nations present, and still they're letting one single dinghy drift with water coming into the boat. I think the most was 18 hours.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have one more question? Or yes, please. Please join us so that if you join us here. Well, just disinfect the microphone quickly and.
Quite a lot of lights in front. Hi, good evening. I'm Gunda, and I fled from Southern Sudan in 2015 and was in East Africa in the camps with 246,000 people. I am not so much interested into the details how a camp runs because I've experienced it myself. My question is actually more, what is the short-term or the long-term goals that we can change the situation? I mean, we won't change a political opinion in the European Union. And I personally think as illegal the situation is how we treat the refugees, how can we oppose this situation being illegal as well properly. That means what opportunities, what options we have for passing over or overtaking the instructions of the situation which is there. Masalan, now I turn into Arabic. For example, illegal marriage, adoption. I'm really talking of this because I went to Uganda and I took 11 people from the refugee camp into my home. I'm now in Europe, but I still support 7 people out of the refugee, that they have an opportunity to go out of the refugee camp. And I think since there is no long-term goal so far, we can't get a majority in Germany to resolve the problem or to open the camps and to let people freely decide where they want to live. So my question is, what actually we can do, each one of us, to change the situation?
Thank you. That's a very good question. Actually, it's a perfect, how do you say? Überleitung.
Go ahead.
To our kind of finishing round, because we'll be closing at 9 latest. May I put this question first to Samuel, who I have to unmute though somehow because it was a bit loud in the end, and I have no idea how to do this.
Okay.
Help.
Hey.
Oh no. Yeah. No, it's cool.
In my own opinion, because are you hearing me?
Very loud and clearly.
No?
I think so.
Okay. Because I've been there, and then they try to stop like any external people.
It was better before. I don't know if you changed something,
okay.
But I just really want, sorry to interrupt you. I just really want to make sure that your message gets across.
Okay. I think you getting me right now.
Yeah, good.
Okay, great. I think, in my own opinion, I think it has to first start on the real ground, on the ground of Moria itself. The pressure has to first come from inside. And if these people are not put pressure on by the outside people, like the people who, like if the people don't know what really happens inside, it's a bit hard to get help there. And these people, the authority, they really take it into their hands to make sure that no information is leaked out. No, nothing that happens inside whatsoever is let out to the media and to as the one that delays people, and it keeps people in the place for a very long time. If they can be put pressure on, I think they can work on people more fast. They can clear cases fast, because a lot of people are pending. Most of the cases are pending cases, and that's why they sit there, because people sit there for 2 years. I found people that have been there for 3 years, and he says, me, I've been in Moria for 3 years. And it's really sad. And it's because the people are outside, because they go outside and say that the system is running well, but in actual sense, it's not. YASO works very differently to what we think it needs to be doing. And if the pressure is not put into it, then it will not act. That's why we end up like making demonstrations. Different people make demonstrations. And when they make demonstrations, then different organizations will come in and look and see what's really happening inside. And that's when they start to speed up the system at first, but then they get back to the normal thing, and that is to not really care about the people inside. And they really, to give you another example, how these people keep like the things inside, let's say the COVID measures, although it's a different thing, but I'll just mention it, I'll just put it there. Like the COVID measures, they control to protect people from the corona, they were not in place. Outside, they try to, because outside people pass, like media groups, they pass, they try to put like washing hands, like washing hand spots. They were there, but then inside the camp, the big camp, there is nothing. People move like there's no provisions. There is really nothing inside, because they really don't care. It's like the numbers are huge. The big numbers of people inside. And it's all up to YASO. It's all up to YASO. I think if they put pressure on YASO, it can do what.
Just to explain for the audience, YASO, this is the European Asylum Support Office, which is handling most of the asylum cases in Moria.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And if they put pressure on YASO, then it's okay. People will move fast. But other than that, most people, there are even people who are still in prison because they had a prison inside, and people were still inside. So it's very crazy. It was really crazy what was happening inside.
So let me ask you one question. Now you say, we heard about Moria and about the living conditions which you have described to us. And so now that Moria is burnt down, do you think, very much apart from the hardship that the people of Moria are suffering right now, what do you think? Is it a good development that the camp, after all, is gone? Because it sounded like hell on earth to me.
I don't know. I don't know to which direction you might decide to see it, but so far now all the people that I was staying with, most of them are sleeping on the road. I don't think that's a that's a good thing. Already they were sleeping in tents. We were sleeping in tents, which were barely sheltering us, if you know what I mean. And now that it's banned, people are in roads and it's not safe there. They have to go into the bushes. And also on a positive note, at least people have been transferred, like other miners. 400, a couple of them have been transferred, and yeah, some of them are my friends, and they were really happy about it. But then for the rest of the people that are inside, they are left in dire straits. That's what I can say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
What I don't understand is, so you describe it as a very slowly working system, that asylum applications will take 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. But I don't see any reason why this time, while people are waiting for their asylum applications, why do they have to sit at the borders of Europe? You know, this could also happen in Munich, where we are. This could happen in any other city of the European Union. This doesn't need to happen at the border. So I don't think they're just slow. They don't want to be fast.
I really don't know what to say, because I don't run the system. I'm part of the people that the system runs. So I can't tell otherwise. But it's just, that's what we found on the ground. But with demonstrations, because I can tell you, we really demonstrated for first 4 years to open, because after post-COVID, it had failed to open a couple of months ago. It had failed to open, and then after opening, it was really running very slow. I can tell you, it was really running very slow, and people were given like very far dates, like I communicated earlier on, and it's really frustrating. People are left anxious.
Okay.
That's what I think.
I understand that, but can I ask you one last question? So you say you're not running the system, so you can't say. If you were running the system, if you were responsible for it, how would you do it? What do you think would be fair to the people of Moria?
First of all, I don't think the presence of the camp is a good idea. Mm-hmm. I think it's not a good thing, because of what I've seen when I was inside. I wouldn't support Moria being in place. I would really support for the abolishment of Moria. And sadly, I've heard that after they're now going to reconstruct the structures afterwards. And trust me, you wouldn't want to be there. So I would really pray, I would really ask for the closure of Moria, that is for sure. Because people are not given, people are barely given any service. People barely get even like the basic needs like a person has to have: the shelter, the clothing, I don't know, even a peace of mind. You can't have that inside Moria. So I would really petition for it to be closed. That is what I would petition for. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you again for sharing all this with us. I think it's still a difficult situation for you. So let me take this opportunity to thank you again for participating and for sharing all this with us.
You're welcome.
Carmen, we had a demonstration yesterday here in Munich, quite a few people at the very center of the city. And so one of the demands was for the evacuation of Moria, which has been a long-running demand in Germany from civil society. Do you think this is enough? Or if I can put the same question to you, if you were in charge, how would you run things?
If only we were in charge. No, I mean, evacuation of the camps, I mean, not only of the people, of course, who now had to flee Moria after the fire, but of all the island camps is something that we have been pushing for a long time. As you know, something that clearly could happen. And of course, I mean, this is something that we would hope you know, whatever, in the short term, in the long term, like if you look at the future and how the European Union should treat people on the move, I think in the end it's not so complicated, and it's really as simple as just treating people like people. But Europe is deciding to do exactly the opposite. And I think just to also link to something that Sam pointed out about, you know, the fact that it's important also on the ground to really, you know, go inside, monitor, really show how bad the situation is and announce. Linked to that, something that we have experienced very much also with Pikpa camp is that, you know, what we are trying to do in Pikpa is exactly to represent how we think Europe should treat people on the move. Like we have basically an open space, it's a community space where we have people, Greek, local people, international people coming in, and we run the space together with our residents. You know, working on different skills, running the place, supporting them in their asylum procedure, just, you know, a community living together. And what we also find out about it, that in a way you don't also, you know, you don't need many resources for that. The only thing you need is, you know, yeah, an open heart, let's say, and just welcome people in your community. And what you see, which is happening across the board, is that we are under attack in the way almost since we are existing, because the governments and authorities don't want to see these models. They don't want to see these examples of how people are just, you know, living together, people on the move, local people, people from different places. They don't want to see that it can actually work, that you need few resources, but just, you know, a different approach. Just help each other out, show solidarity. It's really not so complicated. And this is now, I think, also something that we should point out, where we have reached a very scary point as well as to what should happen, in that, okay, there are attacks also, you know, on places like, or pressure on places like Pikpa, because we represent something that they don't want this to succeed. But also, of course, all the monitoring and the protests, there's a huge crackdown on civil society happening in Greece, but of course also happening across Europe, where, you know, Moria camp is a black box. These places are black boxes. Ships like Mare Liberum, who are not, you know, allowed to go into the Aegean because they want it to be a black box. They don't want us to see what's happening there. The same in the Central Med, where ships are grounded, where now the Moonbird, the plane that was flying over, is grounded. And I think also in terms of next steps and strategies, I think this is, you know, for the people on the ground monitoring, and especially, you know, the crackdown also very much in the first place on the people inside the camps who have tried to, you know, have protesters, as Sam said, who have denounced. This is something that over the last years, the crackdown, I have seen rapidly growing in a very scary way, and the violence that is used. And I think one of the first things that, you know, that we need to do is to really go against that. And we, of course, keep doing our work and what we feel is what we think and strongly believe is right, despite the criminalization, despite the threats and the harassment. And then, of course, you know, keep bringing everything out, and then having people like you in München and, you know, everybody all over Europe who still supports a different idea to go out and keep protesting, because the battlefield is very much in the capitals. I mean, as we all know, in the end, all of Europe is trying to push this toxic plan, where they basically want to treat people as bad as possible, still in the vain hope that people will stop coming, which of course will never happen. We'll just have more people dying and more people suffering. And we need to keep our eyes on that, announcing it, but it's crucial that, of course, this is happening across Europe. And I would say especially now, because at the end of September, Europe will start announcing their vision for the next years on how they want to manage migration, as they like to say it. And of course, it looks like it will be a very, very ugly picture. It will be very scary. And we'll have to be ready for that fight and to try to resist, even if we know we are in a very hostile climate, even if we know we probably won't be able to stop everything. But I think even if it's difficult and, it's we have a lot of backlashes, it's very, very important that we keep the power and we stay strong. And I believe we are. If you see the mobilization now across Europe also after the fire, it really shows that we are out there and we should use that power.
Short question. Thank you. Short question I would like to put to you. What can we do concretely for Lesvos Solidarity here from Munich? I mean, you heard we will be donating the proceeds of this evening, but is there something more we can do? What are you most in need of also to go out and support the people on the streets right now?
No, exactly that. I mean, donations, of course, it's one thing, because in the camp we always are in need of resources to do our work on the ground. Also because we are a local organization, it means we are linked also to the local hospital. And, we are really trying to support the community across the board. So of course, support is important and it's one thing. But the main people all over Europe to keep making noise and denouncing what is happening on the borders. I mean, what helps us the most is to see, like this action with the 13,000 shares in Germany, and to see these protests happening across Europe. I mean, this is something that we discussed. For example, we had a meeting with some of the people in our group this morning, and we still get a push on that. It does help. I think it shouldn't be underestimated that also for like the groups on the ground to see that you're not alone, to see that people are actually going to their governments, are shouting, are denouncing, that it is in the media across Europe. This gives a lot of power, and this is really what is crucial, because all too often, Lesbos, the islands, Moria camp are not in the headlines. I mean, I think Germany in this sense, we also have to be aware, is an exception. Like, I don't know what exactly is happening with you, but I feel at least there's some more media coverage also in the mainstream media in general on Lesbos. But in the rest of Europe and even in Greece, there's basically nothing known about this. And of course, this, this ignorance and also fake news and just this, let's say, apathy, I think really is our biggest enemy. And to see the power and the protests around Europe to keep the pressure up, it's very crucial.
Thank you. Now, let me ask Marie something. You have a very, how would I put this? You have a very kind of specific mode of acting with the, suppose like when you are allowed to go out and you do the monitoring out on the sea. And now, if I pick up something Carmen said, is that she described this attack on civil society. She described these black boxes that are created, which show no transparency, which show no accountability. So I get the idea that we started with the question how human rights, how refugee rights are being violated at the borders, but the longer we talk about it, it seems to become a question not just concerning migration, concerning people on the move, but it seems to become a question about the status and the decline of democracy in Europe. Is this something you see in your work? Is it? Yeah, let me put this question to you like this.
Oh, absolutely. I feel very much the same way. And I think, first of all, human rights have become a privilege for people with the right passport. I mean, they always have, but it's being enforced much stronger. And I'm very much afraid of the future. At the moment, I'm not very hopeful. I think also the problem is, I mean, there are so many crimes happening, and the way we work is we're trying to make it public, but it only works if people actually care about it and do get angry about it and start acting. And I mean, there are so many reports about violence at borders, you know, the Balkan, the Centromed, the Aegean, everywhere. And yeah, unless I think like, unless politicians like Seehofer are forced to step back and better people take over, the system is going to continue like that. Unless also, you know, there's going to be a change in society, which I don't see at the moment, but we have to ask ourselves as well, like, is the system of borders necessary, and is it beneficial for all people?
And let me also put the same question to you now. You're running this, or you're with this effort to monitor. How can that be supported? Is it just a question of money? Is it just a question of having as many ships on the Aegean and also in the Central Mediterranean, having monitoring lawyers in Evros, where there are also a lot of pushbacks, and all along the Balkan route? Is this something we need to do, that we need to be more specialized, that we need to dig deeper into these details and kind of publish more on it? Or do you see also other ways how this information, how this knowledge that you gather about what Europe is doing, how it can be translated into a kind of a larger message and that can affect something more in society? Sorry, I put the most difficult question to you.
I think what Carmen also said about, you know, people like the apathy and people not caring is like one of the biggest problems, you know, that in really wealthy countries like Germany, you know, people enjoy, you know, having the good life, and also don't want to question it. Like it's nice to be on the privileged side of life. And so not many people are interested in sharing, you know, wealth and, you know, rights equally. And yeah, at the moment when you're saying like what can be done, I mean, we are facing a wave of repression. We are fighting a court case against the German government to be able to go out. Our ship was just raided by the Greek police and the Coast Guards, and our ship has been attacked by fascists. We haven't been able to go back to a port in over half a year. And all we're trying to do is show what is happening in a tiny, tiny fraction of the European border region. And I don't know, any help is necessary. Like money donation, awareness, people that actually want to use the information, put pressure on politicians, fight legal cases, and just, you know, care, like who give, like who are interested in not shutting their eyes to brutal tactics of, for example, the Hellenic Coast Guard.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. If somebody from the audience would like to come to this chair, and yeah, please.
Hello to you all. A question which I don't find an answer is the role of the Greek government. Here in Munich, the city council decided to assist Greece with sending materials, improving the situation in refugee camps on the mainland. I think in the Thessaloniki region, which is something useful, but all you described now is that the Greece government and forces and border guards and so on are keeping Moria and the other camps on the island as ugly places to deter other people coming from Turkey to Europe and coming to these camps. They are doing pushbacks to to kick people actively out? And is this government, on the other hand, sort of, can it be a partner in some sort of fair refugee reception, or is it just that we should say, okay, there's no real, except from at the moment giving emergency assistance and so on, but can we say that the Greek government is in a way can be a partner to assist refugees, or is it just the showing the ugly face of Europe?
I actually think, well, not under the current government. The current government is really right-winged, but I mean, Greece is carrying a huge load when it comes to migration, and is being completely left alone in a sense by European countries. Every time when there's a talk about evacuation of Moria or the acceptance of unaccompanied minors, politicians talk for months about maybe accepting 50. It's a European responsibility, and there are countries, Greece and Malta, that are completely left alone, which is no excuse. But yes, there could be not the government right now, but there could be a partner. There could be an equal sharing of responsibility. I think, I don't know, Carmen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, the countries at the borders, and of course, Greece is among them. Naturally, that is where people are arriving. They are of course confronted with the first arrivals, and for a long time they have also been asking from Europe, that we need to have a fair system where this responsibility is shared and there is some reallocation, which in the end, of course, there is no political will for. And in the current climate in Europe, even if it supposedly will be again on the table, it's probably not going to happen. Of course, we have a lot of also like geopolitical things happening there. As always, it's still politics, and there is of course also the issue of money, where the EU is giving lots and lots and lots and lots of money to Greece to be their shield, as the president of the Europe. As Ursula von der Leyen likes to say it. So in a way, they are trying to outsource these kind of things also to Greece, where you see also like huge amounts of money. Like now, also before the fire in Moria, they also published a contract that was kind of showing the high-tech infrastructure that they would put up for this controlled access structure that we were talking about before, between brackets, for 6 million euros, which is, all of these amounts being thrown around. So there clearly has been an understanding between the EU and Greece, where I personally think we don't know exactly what exactly they are getting in return. There's not only the financial, but there are other issues, obviously, where they have agreed to kind of do that dirty work.
Thank you. I don't know if Samuel also wants to say something about this question. It's not obligatory.
I think like much has been said. Like by Carmen and Marie, and the Greek government is just it's just not doing enough to really help, regardless of the support that it's getting. I don't really think it's doing really enough to help with the migrant crisis. I really think with the security, I think that starts with the security. The security is not enough. Even the security, let's say in the camp, like you have a lot of people, over 12,000 people, and then you have less than 20 security personnel to less than 20 security personnel to really take care of it. I really think that regardless of the support and the funds that are injected in, they just recklessly neglect their role that they have to play. That's what I really think. Like they just leave it for as it is. That's what I really think about it. Like they just don't care much about it. Yeah.
And if I can quickly add something, if I may, that just came to mind. I think what also something important to point out is that, you know, with this now this, let's say, cooperation between European Union, Greece, it also leaves a very convenient vacuum, let's say, around accountability. Because whenever something goes wrong, the Greek government will kind of say, yes, but it's not really us, because in the end, it's the responsibility of the European Union and vice versa. So, for example, also when we had 2-3 years ago, during winter in Moria camp, several people dying when there was snow and a very cold winter, they would always, you know, shift the blame to each other. And kind of, you know, they're protecting each other and kind of also using this, like when people were actually shot in March at the border, also the European Union will say, no, the Greek government said it's fake news, so we leave it at that. And so I think it's very convenient also to use this.
Thank you. We have to come to an end. It's approaching 9 o'clock. Let me thank you again, not only for participating, but also for all the work you are doing and all the activities. Sorry, it's getting for the work you're doing and that you're sharing this with us and that you will continue to do this work. And I hope it has been not only informative for the audience here in Munich and on the global internet, but I also hope that we can take something away from this evening and will engage more strongly in building stronger ties of solidarity so that we will be able to change the situation. So thank you. And how do we do this? There should be some kind of applause. I don't know if it will be picked up by this microphone. Let me try. And thank you very much for attending. And I really hope that we will all meet again in some other configuration and that we will stay active together, that we will stay moving, and that all together we'll manage to change this unbearable situation we are facing right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for raising awareness for the topic. And yeah, please stay on it even after Moria disappears from the news again.
Yes, hear, hear. Thank you so much for giving the platform and for your support and for the questions. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're not accustomed to this format, so I don't know how it works now. We get up. I'd like to have a drink or a little food with you, but I guess this...
Yeah, let's have a drink.
I'll have a beer.